Honduran electoral councilor Marlon Ochoa denounced that several irregularities detected during the presidential elections of November 30th, denouncing them as the most manipulated in the country's democratic history. In Argentina, the failure of the neoliberal policies of President Javier Milei is reflected in an economic slump. And Russia and India strengthened cooperation ties during official talks between President Vladimir Putin and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Honduran electoral councilor Marlon Ochoa denounced the several irregularities detected during the presidential elections of November 30th, denouncing them as the most manipulated in the country's democratic history and also condemning the process' lack of transparency. Speaking at a press conference on Thursday, Ochoa read a statement entitled Electoral Coup 2025, where he denounced that the preliminary election results transmission system, TREP, is a real trap, whose deficiencies prevent certainty about the results at the presidential and deputy levels, in line with the accusations of candidate Rixi Moncada from the Libre Party about electoral fraud. In this regard, the councilors presented 7 key points detailing irregularities such as the elimination of biometric control, errors in 86.6% of the records, and the automatic transfer of votes.
Que estamos quizás en la
We are perhaps in the least transparent election in our democratic history, and I believe that this election will be remembered in history, not only for what we are seeing through what is taking place in the disclosure system, not only because of the vote buying that occurred on election day. Also, not only because of the intimidation to which thousands of people were subjected in all the towns of Honduras, but also it is an untransparent and fraudulent election because of the vulgar foreign intervention that has existed. Never in the history of the Latin American region there has been such manipulation of an election as has occurred in this election. We are faced with the most manipulated election in our history, surpassing even the 2013-2017 election. To the Honduran people, what I can tell you is that you can expect absolute transparency from me.
And we stay in Honduras. The International Observation Mission of the American Association of Jurists presented a preliminary report on its work in the general elections in Honduras. The report highlighted the extreme seriousness of the external interference in the Honduran electoral process, particularly the statements made by the President of the United States and the President of Argentina, which have placed the democratic legitimacy of the process in crisis and constitute a flagrant violation of the Honduran people's right to self-determination. Likewise, the mission expressed its deep concern regarding the leaks that occurred within the National Electoral Council, which were detailed in the report and could distort the legitimacy of the electoral process. And in other news, human rights defenders condemned the proposal by far-right presidential candidate José Antonio Casta to release prisoners convicted in Chile for crimes against humanity. The proposal to pardon human rights violators represents a painful step backward and a direct affront to victims and their families, they warned. The presidential candidate is in favor of pardoning prisoners over the age of 70 with terminal illnesses, such as those in Punta Beuco prison. Miguel Krasnov, sentenced to more than 1,000 years in prison for crimes committed during the Pinochet regime, is being held there. The statement warns that any attempt to reverse court rulings or seek impunity will only deepen Chile's wounds. And the Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez presented to the National Assembly on Thursday the bill for the financial budget 2026. During her presentation, Rodriguez stressed that the document was made amid a special context characterized by an unprecedented siege and threat against the Bolivarian nation by the United States government. The Vice President affirmed that presently Venezuela is defending an unquestionable truth that was born during the independence wars and which was engraved in the proclamation issued by Liberator Simon Bolivar at the Angostura Congress in 1818. Rodriguez emphasized that Venezuela is telling the world today that it has reinvented itself, that it will not surrender to any power, and that it is totally an independent nation.
We haven't hesitated in sustaining the truth of Venezuela and reaffirming our truth. Everything else is a group of lies to be able to justify an intervention, and as it was well denounced by the president facing the countries of the OPEP and the OPEP Plus, it is a lie, a group of lies to take the resources, the energy resources of Venezuela.
And also in Venezuela, the head of state, Nicolás Maduro, emphasized that the Venezuelan people would resort to armed struggles solely for the purpose of defending the peace and sovereignty of the country in the face of threats from the United States. During his program, Maduro Live de Repente, the president endorsed the words of Venezuela's permanent ambassador to the United Nations, Samuel Moncada, which seek to restore international law, put an end to unilateral coercive measures imposed on free peoples, and ensure that peace prevails in the world. On the other hand, the head of state approved the request submitted by the National Institute of Civil Aeronautics to keep the vital return to the homeland government plan in place, which guarantees the continuity of repatriation operations and family reunification in the country. Adding other news, in the United States, dozens of protesters were forcibly removed from the city council after their second day of protest against anti-immigrant operations in New Orleans. Protesters carrying signs reading "No to collaboration with ICE," Immigration and Customs Enforcement, demanded that city leaders establish ICE-free zones because the protesters refused to leave the podium and the councillors decided to suspend the session. While the meeting resumed inside the city hall, the protesters said they would return, and in that context, the police ordered the protesters to leave the building, and although some obeyed, many were pushed or carried away by force. Now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. And we go to Argentina, where the failure of the neoliberal policies of President Javier Milei is reflected in an economic slump that in October 2025 resulted in more than 100,000 checks being refused to the insufficient funds. Given this historic peak, financial institutions still active in the country warned about citizens' inability to pay in credit card and other types of loan payments. An analysis of the banking sector in October revealed that more than 108,000 checks were returned, indicating a 208% increase in returns compared to September. In this context, Milei's economic measures are causing unease and uncertainty among the population amidst growing public debt. Also in Argentina, the Transport Workers Union began a bus strike to put pressure on the authorities to pay wages. According to the transport workers, at least 30 bus lines are abstaining from working this Friday because their wages were not paid on time and in the proper manner. In addition, in many cases, only 50% of their wages were deposited. In this scenario, the Argentina's Union of Motor Trams clarified that if the corresponding salaries are paid during the day, the lines that are on strike will resume normal service. The union also emphasized that the government is responsible for this transportation strike since wages are part of their family's livelihood and threaten their economic stability. In Cuba, the 46th edition of the International Festival of New Latin American Cinema began in Havana with an official selection of 222 artistic works from 42 countries. The opening ceremony was held at the Charles Chaplin Movie Theater, where the multiple and complex realities addressed by the new Latin American cinema were highlighted. In addition, the festival organizers emphasized national efforts to ensure the visibility of the event despite the difficulties. The festival began with the screening of the Argentine film Belén, directed by Dolores Fonsi. Backed by specialized critics, the film was selected to represent Argentina at the 2026 Oscar and Goya Awards. And the documentary Norita about the Argentine Plaza de Mayo mother Nora Cortiñas arrived in Spain to generate dialogue about memory, feminism, human rights, and to inspire social movements with Nora's global struggle. The documentary Norita was screened at a meeting against impunity and in defense of human rights held at the House of Solidarity and organized together with HIJOS Barcelona, a feature film that narrates the life and struggle of Nora Cortiñas from when she was searching for her son, who disappeared during the Argentine dictatorship, until she became an icon of human rights and feminism. The documentary will also be screened in Italy, the Netherlands, France, and Germany. In other information, but also staying on topic, Spanish broadcaster RTVE has withdrawn from Eurovision after Israel was cleared to participate in the next edition of the regional song contest, despite their ongoing genocidal actions against Palestine. Shortly after, on Thursday, the European Broadcasting Union voted at its 95th General Assembly in Geneva to clear Tel Aviv's permanence in the competition. Madrid confirmed its decision to quit. In addition, the nation's public broadcaster will not air the show's semi-finals nor final. Ahead of the vote, Spain had denounced Israel's participation, arguing that its aggression on Gaza and its use of the contest for political purposes make it difficult to maintain the competition as a neutral cultural event. The Iberian nation joins the Netherlands, Ireland and Slovenia, who have also withdrawn from the competition, to take place in Vienna, Austria in May of 2026. Israeli aggression continues in the Gaza Strip despite the ceasefire agreement, with 8 Palestinians killed and 16 injured in the last 24 hours. According to local health authorities, rescue and civil defense teams are still unable to reach several victims trapped beneath destroyed buildings and along roadways due to ongoing bombardments and restricted access. Meanwhile, since the ceasefire was declared on October 10, 2025, periodic Israeli attacks have killed 366 and injured 938 Palestinians, while 619 bodies have been found beneath the debris. This brings the death toll since the latest escalation of the conflict on October 2023 to 70,125, with 171,015 others injured. And now we have a second short break coming up. Before we invite you to Visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. For a short break, we'll be right back. Welcome back to From the South. Floods and landslides have left 837 people dead and over 500 missing, according to the latest official data by Indonesia's National Disaster Management Agency. All-out rescue and relief operations are underway, but teams are struggling to reach several villages on Sumatra Island after roads and bridges were washed away. Residents in need are receiving aid in a shelter in West Sumatra province. The lack of clean drinking water is the most pressing issue in the area, as the river water has been contaminated since November 27th, making access to safe water difficult for local residents. Displaced residents said their homes were destroyed by flooding. They are also being evacuated to shelters, as aid supplies are also being distributed, but resources remain limited. Now we move on to other topics. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi welcomed Russian President Vladimir Putin at the presidential palace in New Delhi as part of an official visit to discuss issues of mutual interest. In this scenario, the leaders decided to allocate $100 billion to the Russian-India Cooperation and Trade Exchange Program until 2030. During the meeting, at least 15 agreements and a dozen documents relating to trade and investment are expected to be signed. In this regard, Modi expressed his conviction that the meeting with Putin will give new impetus to economic cooperation between the two countries. On the other hand, President Vladimir Putin confirmed Russia and India as close partners, also highlighting that trade exchange exceeded $64 billion in 2024. In addition, Putin's agenda includes attending the 23rd Russia-India Annual Summit, meeting Indian President Draupadi Murmu, and visiting the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial.
Успешно развивается партнерство в энергетике.
The partnership in the energy sector is successfully developing. Russia is a reliable supplier of energy resources and everything necessary for the development of India's energy sector. We are ready to continue ensuring the uninterrupted supply of fuel for the rapidly growing Indian economy. Of course, the bilateral cooperation is not limited in this. A flagship project on building India's largest nuclear power plant, Kudankulam, is being carried out. The consonance of the positions of the two countries has been confirmed. Russia and India pursue independent and autonomous foreign policies. We, along with supporters from BRICS, SCO, and from the states of world's majority, promote the processes of forming a fairer, more democratic, multipolar world order, and advocate for the fundamental principles of international law enshrined in the UN Charter.
For his part, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlighted that the economic agreement signed with Russia will diversify bilateral trade among the nations.
Taking economic cooperation to new heights is our common priority. To make this a reality, today we have agreed on an economic cooperation program for 2030. This will make our trade and investment diversified, balanced, and sustainable. Energy security has been a strong and important pillar of the India-Russia partnership. Our decades-long cooperation in the field of civil nuclear energy has been instrumental in making our shared priorities on clean energy meaningful. We will continue this cooperation.
And in other informations, in Russia, the armed forces shot down more than 70 Ukrainian drones over the last 2 days. The Russian Ministry of Defense specified that in the last 48 hours, the army shot down 76 combat drones from Kiev and hit targets in 145 regions. The ministry also stated that the targets included transport and energy infrastructure that supplies the Ukrainian army and long-range drones assembly workshops. In addition, the Russian fleet destroyed 2 unmanned Ukrainian vessels in the northwest of the Black Sea. And on Thursday in the United States, the presidents of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda signed a peace agreement with the aim of ending the armed conflict in eastern Congo. The Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi assured that his country would fully play its role with dignity, conscience and consistency, despite it being a demanding and quite difficult path where peace would not only be a desire and an aspiration but a turning point. For his part, Rwandan President Paul Kagame expressed his gratitude for the United States government's mediation in resolving a conflict that has lasted for 30 years and involves numerous efforts to reach a peaceful agreement between the countries. And on Friday, China and France issued a joint statement focused on expanding cooperation in peaceful nuclear energy in the fight against climate change and for energy security. Both countries agreed to deepen technical exchanges on the operation of third-generation reactors, the extension of power plant lifetimes, and also radioactive waste management. They also emphasized that technological innovations is key to improving the safety and competitiveness of nuclear energy. They recognize as well the importance of coordinating efforts in the nuclear supply chain, including fuel, equipment, manufacturing, and Iranian resources to ensure its stability, safety, and sustainability. And after this information, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also, we invite you to join us on our social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.